Welcome to the Peer-to-Peer podcast with your host, Julia Kinner, where we uncover growth strategy and execution and customer value optimization within the peer-to-peer business model. This podcast is part of Yes Inc., an industry-specific network for the top 1% of business leaders. Learn more at yes.inc.
So hello everyone and welcome. My name is Julia Kinner. It's the first episode of our podcast, and today we talk about peer-to-peer car rental, and my first guest is Marc Roberts. Hello Marc, how are you doing today?
Hi there. I'm very well, thank you.
Very good. So Marc, maybe just to start, could you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about HiyaCar, which is your business. What is your business model, how it has evolved, etc.?
So, yes, I'm the CEO of HiyaCar. HiyaCar started as a peer-to-peer car rental marketplace, and it stayed that way for a number of years. And then we started to expand the offerings within the platform. So, firstly, we started managing our own cars on the platform. We call them V cars or our car club. And initially, that was to plug the gaps in the supply and demand, so we could kind of bootstrap new cities by moving our cars there, generating that supply, generating the demand, and then when owners in that area sign up and list their cars, we could move those cars on. And over a few years, we grew those cars up to about 400 around the country, mostly in London, but in a few other cities around the country. And as we got to 400 cars, it became quite difficult to manage those cars from a kind of logistical and operational point of view. So we built an internal tool to help us with all of that. And eventually, about 3 or 4 years ago, 2 years ago, we realized that tool, combined with the keyless technology that we've had for a couple of years at that point, which allowed drivers to access cars with their mobile phone, not having to meet owners and hand over keys. Combining those two things together is quite a compelling product for organizations to manage their pool cars. And so we spent some time to productize that as a B2B offering. And now, in the last 18 months or so, we've entered a few contracts with a lot of public sector bodies, local authorities, NHS trusts, to help them manage a pool car solution, to help them reduce their grade fleet miles, reduce their emissions, and just have a generally smaller, higher utilized fleet of cars for their employees to use.
That's very interesting, Marc. So at the end of the day, you're not a traditional peer-to-peer car rental model, but over the time, you have developed also in a B2B provider. And then I would be, of course, very interested to understand if you see any differences there in terms of target audience, in terms of offerings. How does it go for you, and where are the major differences?
Yeah, so the types of cars that those different offerings demand, it does vary. So a lot of our B2B customers, they just want the most best value for money vehicle that they will get on their fleet, which generally means that the cheapest out, particularly with the NHS trusts, they just want a car that their nurses can get around in as cheaply as possible. So it's all about cost from that point of view. And to a degree, it's similar on the B2C, not the B2B side. The drivers coming to us, they want a car that gets them from A to B to run their errand, or to get them away out of the city for a long weekend. Most of the time, they just want something that's reasonably priced and as close as possible to them. Convenience and cheapness. But sometimes they might want something a little bit bigger. If you're taking a family away for a week, you might want a bit more space for your things. If you are going on a business trip, you might want a bit more of a comfortable car. And so there's more use cases within the consumer-facing offering. And although our car club is generally those smaller cars, but peer-to-peer definitely serves the broadest range of demand there. There's so many seven-seaters that are great for families. There's like all the large executive sedans for those business trips. So the use cases are definitely far more varied on the consumer side than the B2B side, where it's generally just a vehicle to serve a function as cheap as possible.
So what you see is that on the B2B side, it's really all about value for money. And on the B2C side of things, it seems to be a bit more fragmented in terms of demand. And if we look at the part that is maybe not purely price driven, where do you see the biggest segments there? What do you think is really in demand in the UK on peer-to-peer car rental? Is it like for transportation, or?
I guess if you just take away the cost side of things, it's the more unusual offerings. So if you go down to your local traditional car rental company, not going to name any names here, and you want to book a car, you might book it online, turn up at the door, and that particular car might not be available, and they'll try and upsell you to another class of car. Or if you're after a very specific, I want a 7-seater for my family, and you get there and they can't offer that. That's where I think our broad peer-to-peer offering works well. I think that firstly, you're booking a specific car. So if that car's available and you've booked it, when we turn up, that's the kind of getting, not an equivalent. But also, there is that broad range of things. You might want a 2-seater sports car, you might want a 7-seater. You might want a big, comfortable executive car to take you in a business bar away for a business trip. Yeah. It's that broad range, much broader than any traditional car hire company can do, because they've got a limited amount of space to hold their vehicles, and they want volume, so they're going to be holding far more of that traditional, 5-door hatchbacks that are the most popular cars, and the peer-to-peer supply can absorb a lot more variation in demand.
Yes. So does it also mean that this is where you see like the biggest growth opportunities for peer-to-peer rental, like cars that like standard operators would not necessarily cover because they're somehow too niche?
So yeah, if you take away just the cost, focus people, there's just a long tail of options, and that is the kind of one of the biggest benefits of peer-to-peer, is just having this huge array of choices. And as the market grows, as the market grows, that broad range is only going to get broader, while also increasing the availability. So you're going to have more options closer to you, and it's just overall a much better supply solution compared to a traditional agency model.
Yes. I mean, I can imagine that on those niche segments, it might not be so easy for a peer-to-peer car rental to balance out demand and supply, no? Do you have any particular strategies to say, or to recruit supply specifically for those niche areas?
That's probably the most difficult thing for any marketplace, not just for peer-to-peer car renting. Any marketplace, when you've got this broad array of supply options, how do you ensure that you've got the right thing in the right place at the right time? It's incredibly difficult. So it's not a solution that we have. We're working to improve it. It comes down to a number of, I guess, smart marketing choices. Because we're looking at a broad array of supply in a wide area, we have to focus our advertising to very specific, very hyper local areas. So if we see a lot of people searching for 2-liter sports cars in Walthamstow, for instance, then if we see that's consistent every summer, every school half term, then we can prepare some very localized advertising in that area, targeting owners of those cars and runners as in the run up to those high demand times. And so that's kind of where we've got to so far with trying to balance that supply and demand, but by bringing a lot of very small marketing campaigns, I guess. So like we have a long tail of supply, we now have a long tail of marketing campaigns to match that demand in those areas.
So sounds like micro-location, hyper-targeted marketing campaigns to really be able to balance out demand and supply.
Yes, yeah, that's the biggest lever we have to pull to try to balance that supply and demand.
Yes. And another question, Mark. So if you look at the UK as a market, or maybe let's look at the UK. How do you see competition and the overall dynamics in the market? I mean, we know that like Turo is in the market, you have Getaround. There is now a new offering which is called Switch that focuses on long-term rental of EV cars. Where do you see the market going, and what do you think are the major trends that peer-to-peer car rentals should cover, need to cover, etc.?
It's been a very strange or a very varied time for car mobility, mobility in general, but my background is car specifically. In the UK over the last 6 years or so, like, there was an explosion in small peer-to-peer car rental companies, and everyone seemed to think that was the future, and they were all growing. And then, one by one, they had to close down or cease operations, mainly due to insurance-related reasons. It's a tough market in the UK for insurance. It's a lot more complicated than some of the other countries in Europe and worldwide, and so it's always been difficult to get an insurance policy that will work for peer-to-peer car renting to maintain that and be profitable. So I think that's probably the driving force behind some of the players leaving the UK. In a kind of more reward for you, there was an awful lot of venture capital money put into mobility companies. You look at how many electric scooters and dockless bikes there are in the UK and around Europe and the world. And the growth there really wasn't sustainable. So you've seen a lot of mergers or acquisitions in that market. And I think the new peer-to-peer car rental services are also going to have a similar stage in their growth, where there's going to be a lot more consolidation, and possibly even more players exiting markets as they try to reach profitability or get acquired.
Yeah. Do you see like very niche players growing, like this Switch that I just mentioned, that really want to focus on long-term car rentals? Or do you think that is too niche to be able to survive in the UK?
It's a good question. I think with Switch, it being part of the Scott Group, it can operate as a particular brand within their group rather than be an entirely profitable entity in its own right. So it wouldn't have to have the same momentum that a new startup would have to get to profit. But I think it's an interesting choice of market after long-term EV rentals. I think it's inevitable that EVs are the future. We've already seen most of the UK political parties agreeing that we have to phase out fossil fuel vehicles and switch to electric vehicles. So anything that we can do to encourage people to try them out sooner before they have to use one is a smart move. That they can probably pick up a lot of momentum from just using that forced switch in the future to get people to try them out.
Yeah, maybe we will see in the future some EV vehicle producers buying some car rental companies to use that as a point of market entry. Because at the end of the day, I think there are a lot of barriers for consumers to buy an electric vehicle, and just giving them the opportunity to try that maybe for a couple of weeks could be very helpful. But it is now getting a bit off topic, but it could be an interesting recruitment strategy for EV vehicle producers, don't you think?
I do. I think that a lot of manufacturers now have a kind of a try before you buy sort of offering where you go and rent one of their cars at a reduced rate to try and encourage you to buy one. One of the use cases we've had for our drivers in the past, not so much recently, but that it is trying out cars before they buy them. So they would see a neighbour's car listed and buy out, and possibly end up buying it. We've had someone who rented a neighbour's car regularly for 6 months or so, and then stopped using us, and the message saying, "I'm sorry, I've stopped using you, but I like this car so much, I've bought one myself, and now."
Yes.
We tried to invest the car, so there was another one available. But yeah, no more than just on there.
Yeah, that's an interesting use case. Now, why do you think that consumers in that case might prefer a peer-to-peer car rental versus a traditional car dealer? Do you think that is price driven?
It's partly price driven. I mean, there's always going to be a segment of customers who are only price driven, and they want, before they make a booking, they'll check for all of the providers to see which one's going to cost them the least. So you can never avoid that. But there's a number of other reasons that we find are often more bigger influences in somebody making a booking. And firstly, it's location. It's people are willing to pay a little bit more if the car is around the corner versus a 10-minute bus ride away. Convenience for a lot of people is worth paying a bit of money for. And secondly, again, for a lot of people, this is important. When you rent that peer-to-peer car, far more of the money you spend is staying local to you. So it's going to an individual who owns that car, and that money is likely to be spent in the local community. So some of our B2B customers are also sharing their cars to the general public when they're outside of office hours. And that additional revenue coming in is going straight into the local council's revenue. So that's helping that local community. It's saving a bit of money. It's providing additional mobility choices to the local community. So it's kind of a little bit of a win all round there, where that more it's trying to build more of a concept of community around that car, rather than going to traditional car rental owned by a multinational and just being
that's an interesting aspect. I've never really thought about it, but as you say it could be really that human touch, that also makes peer-to-peer car rental more attractive versus alternatives, because there is a human being behind, and you sponsor an individual and not like a large company, which could be really a key reason for consumers to prefer peer-to-peer car rental if other factors like convenience and insurance, etc. are met.
Yes, no, there's that particular example I could give you of we have an owner in South London who is quite busy with us, who has a number of regulars, and we quite often asking if he wants to have our quick start technology installed. That's the keyless technology that allows drivers to open our phone. And he says no, because he likes to meet his drivers. He likes to hand over the keys, likes to chat with them, likes to explain the car to those first time drivers. He's built up this lovely, kind of rapport with all these local drivers that use him regularly.
Yes.
And another great example of that kind of community spirit is that we found that drivers who hire a peer-to-peer car treat that car better than if they hired it from a traditional car hire company. So the cars generally come back cleaner. They have less incidents, and when there are incidents, the driver's usually more proactive about contacting us and the owner about it.
So it is the human being, the tangible human being behind, that makes the entire handling from the driver's side maybe more careful, no? And that's interesting. I've really never thought about those aspects, but it makes the entire peer-to-peer car rental industry, at the end of the day, very, very human. I love that.
Yes, it does. It's fantastic. It's one of my favourite parts of working at HiyaCar.
But no one is talking about that. I mean, if I look at the communication of peer-to-peer car rental, no one really brings in this human touch. No, if I think about the major value proposition of Turo, etc., this really human connection aspect is mentioned nowhere, I think.
I guess not. Maybe we need to start using that in our marketing, but
maybe. I mean, just an idea. And Mark, as we chatted about growth already a bit, what do you think are the biggest growth opportunities? I mean, we had the growth opportunities already, but what do you think are the major obstacles to achieving growth, specifically in the UK market? I mean, I think you already mentioned something around insurance. How do you see that related to growth?
Yeah, I have already mentioned it, but it's definitely worth mentioning again. But insurance is one of our biggest costs, one of the biggest costs for drivers, whether it's a direct cost that they're paying to insure their own car or it's included in the cost when they hire a car. It's unavoidable, unfortunately. And so I think just staying on top of all of the things that you need to do to make sure you don't lose that insurance policy is an obstacle of sorts. You have to be really, really on your risk management, making sure you go above and beyond the restrictions your insurer puts in case. Make sure there's little to no chance of any bad actors getting into your platform and trying to cause problems.
Yes.
I guess the other especially bigger obstacle on the peer-to-peer side is educating the new people as to this whole peer-to-peer concept. That sharing economy's been around for a long time now, but not everybody is aware of this. I interact with a lot of people all the time, and I still hear people who have heard about HiyaCar for the first time and like the idea, but also it's their first introduction to a peer-to-peer marketplace. And they suddenly realize, oh, well, this is a great idea. And I'm very interested in their neighbour. It's great to hear that we are someone's first introduction to that concept. But at the same time, it's also worrying that there's so many people that don't know about this. So we have to do a lot of work with us, directly or indirectly, to explain what peer-to-peer is, how it works, how it's safe. That's one of the main questions. Is it safe to hire my car for someone? So yeah, a lot of time and effort is spent on education, which is a big step for us.
What do you think is generally the awareness of like peer-to-peer car rental concepts? I mean, we know that Airbnb has been around, I don't know, for the last 15 years. I would also think that people now get used to the concept, but what do you think is generally the awareness that peer-to-peer car rental exists? Do you have any numbers on that?
I don't. I wish I did. No, it's certainly lower than the awareness of Airbnb. And even the bigger players like eBay, that's especially one of the original peer-to-peer marketplaces, and
Yes.
they're still running ads that are not about a product or a vertical. It's about the idea you can buy and sell your own stuff. And they've been out for over 20 years, and they're still having to kind of grow this market because there's some people that don't get it.
There are always new people coming into the market that still don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
No, but very good. So I think we are at the end of our podcast episode, Marc. It was a great pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
maybe we have the chance to talk another time. Thank you so much.